Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and today I am going to be returning this copy of Axiom Verge, the Multiverse Edition for the PlayStation Vita. Picked this up at GameStop a couple days ago, and it was a pretty decent copy. I'm not gonna hold you, but the only problem is that I really don't need this game. For one, I already have it on the Switch. In fact, I actually have the Multiverse Edition, which comes with Part 1 and Part 2 there, the big box edition, so I don't need this for the Vita. Even though it looks great on the Vita, I don't need it. And so this is something that I'm going to be returning today. And once I, kind of came to the conclusion that I needed to return this, it had me thinking about a lot of the regrets that I have when it comes to buying video games. And there are three main regrets that I have when it came to video game collecting purchases. And I'll run through them real quickly with you. The first is collecting or buying games that I am not ready to play, or I don't have the systems to play them on. And this is something that I've done for years, right? And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But I'll give you an example. I was at a flea market over this past summer and they were selling Game Gear games. And I was just so stoked to find Streets of Rage on the Game Gear and some other games that I bought 4 Game Gear games, knowing fully well I don't have a Game Gear. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'll buy a Game Gear, or eventually I'll run into a Game Gear that I can pick up and play. The other thought that I had in my head was, oh, well, I could just get the adapter for my analog pocket and just play these games on my analog pocket. But the reality was that I wasn't going to do that, because finding a Game Gear that works with no capacitor issues, and that someone's willing to sell, because if you find someone selling a working Game Gear, they're going to charge an arm and a leg for it. The only ones that are cheaper are the ones with like failing capacitors, screen issues, this, that, and the third. So it was going to be more of a hassle to find a working Game Gear. So I sold the games because it didn't make sense to get it. In the past, I've picked up controllers for consoles that I don't have. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. An example would be when I picked up that camouflage PS5 controller. Now, I picked that up because I knew I had a PS5 coming. It was on its way, so it worked out for me there. But I've done that with like Xbox controllers. Before I actually got the Xbox that I have now, I'd pick up Xbox controllers, or I'd just pick up games. I'd pick up things that I just knew I didn't have the tools to actually play them. And I would pick them up just because they were there. They were probably cheap. And I figured to myself, I'll collect it and use it later. I regret making those decisions. Those weren't some of my more expensive purchases, but they were purchases nonetheless, and wastes of money, and they were wastes of time, because after buying them, I would have to spend time trying to figure out A, how to use them, or B, how to get where to get the other devices to actually use them. So that's just a collecting purchase, or that's just those purchases that I made when collecting are some of the regrets that I have. Another regret that I have is attempting to complete sets. That is something that a lot of people try to do. Some people go for a complete Wii U set. They go for a complete this set, a complete that set. I've never tried to complete a full set for any particular console, but what I would try to do is complete, like for instance, like a series, or I might try to get every game. For instance, I might try to get every Spider-Man game. That's something that I tried to do this summer. Or I might try to get all 3 Super Mario games for the NES to complete the trilogy, or all 3 Castlevania games on the NES, or I would do things like that. And I realized I had to stop when it came to Xenosaga. So I actually had some trade credit at a game store, and I didn't want to just buy a bunch of, fluff games. Because I figured if I bought Xenosaga 3 and if I didn't like it, then I could always sell it and get the money back. So they had a copy of Xenosaga 3 there. It was in good condition. It was complete. So I picked it up and I added it to the collection. And what's crazy is that after I picked it up, I said to myself, you know what, maybe I can complete it. Maybe I could get Xenosaga 1 and Xenosaga 2. But then I had to think to myself, like, bro, you didn't, like, these are not games that you would have wanted. So why are you trying to complete the set just to say you have Xenosaga 1, 2, and 3? It doesn't make sense. And I just feel like that when I have done that, and when I have pulled the trigger and bought games to complete sets, um, I always regret making the decision because I know that there's probably only one game in the series that I really like. It's kind of like the Suikoden series, right? There's 5 parts to it. Some people only like Suikoden 1. Some people only like Suikoden 5. Some people rave about Suikoden 2, but that's probably just because it's the second or the most expensive game in the series. Me, I've never tried to go for all 5 installments in the Suikoden series. I had always had Suikoden 5. I found Suikoden 3 at a GameStop this summer, and it was super clean, complete in box. So I picked that one up, just because I do like the Suikoden series. And then what's crazy is I had Suikoden 1 and I sold it, and then when I was doing a trade at a store, I was looking for something to burn trade credit on, and they happened to have a copy of Suikoden 2. So now in my collection I have Suikoden 2, 3, and 5. I'm missing 1 and 4. Am I going out there trying to find them? No. Am I gonna go on eBay and look for them? No. If I run into them in the wild and they're cheap enough, maybe. But what I'm talking about is having certain games in a series and then going online and trying to find the rest of the games in the series on eBay. Those are purchases that I regret making, and that's definitely not something I'm going to be doing moving forward into 2025. The third type of regret that I have when it comes to video game purchases, and it is, to me, this one is one that's probably one that I've been the most aggressive in changing, and that is buying brand new sealed games. Um, I am not interested in building a backlog of sealed video games. Just because I have plenty of games that are open that I can play and that I need to play through before adding to my collection. A good example of this is right now, there's a game that I've been talking about on my channel a ton, Stellar Blade. Right now, that game is only $50. It's normally $70. I was in GameStop and I was so tempted to buy it, along with a copy of Spider-Man 2, because they have that on sale as well for $40. So a total of what's that? Like, what is that? $50 in savings maybe on those 2 games. And I do have a PlayStation 5. The only thing is that I don't have a disc drive. And I'm not about to overpay for a disc drive because everyone's charging, a 60% markup on it now, and none of the stores have them. So I really kind of have to wait to find a disc drive to play PS5 games, or just bite the bullet and hope that I can find like a PS5 Slim, like a regular one with the disc drive that I can use to play games. But until then, it doesn't make sense for me to build my backlog and buy more sealed new games and put them on the shelf. That's just not something that I want to do anymore. I have enough sealed games to probably do an unboxing from now until like 2026. So adding to that just doesn't really make sense to me, and I feel like I would regret making purchases like that. Every Switch game that I've purchased this year, I've opened and played. From Slave Zero X to the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection to Gravity Circuit to The Last Faith. And the only reason why I know all the Switch games that I picked up this year is because I've only picked up about 5. Because I'm not interested in buying up a bunch of Switch games to put them on the shelf. I want to play all the Switch games that I get, and I have. The Last Faith, I wasn't too impressed, but for me, when it comes to those types of games, if you're not on par with Blasphemous, I'm going to get bored with you. Blasphemous is the best version of those types of games, those 2D Souls-like hack and slashers. Blasphemous just kills it. So Gravity Circuit was an interesting game. It was a fun game. Got pretty far in it. Stopped playing it. Capcom Fighting Collection I'm playing now, but I'm really wanting to play these games more, especially when it comes to the Switch games. So, and I know that I'm going to regret just buying a bunch of games and putting them on the shelf. So those are the 3 types of like collecting purchases that I regret having made in the past, and they're purchases that I'm not going to be making moving forward, just because I'm really focused on curating a tailored collection to what I like, made up of specific games that meet my needs, that I thoroughly enjoy. So this is going back to the store. I'm not keeping this. I've got a couple of games that I'm going to try to trade today. And don't get me wrong, I'll buy games that I don't need if I can trade for them. Like if I've got stuff in my collection that I don't have to come out of pocket and I can trade to add games, I'll do that all day. But I'm just talking about going and spending money on buying games. I'm not interested in doing really much of that anymore, unless it's something that's really compelling to me. Last thing I'll end off with is a story that I have for you. Like some lint from my sweater. Horrible. Last thing I'll end off is with this story. So a couple years ago, I had bought a Super Scope for the Super Nintendo. Had all intentions of using this Super Scope, and I thought that I had a TV that would work with it. I think you need a CRT TV. I bought the Super Scope, brought it home, plugged it up, and it wasn't working. I thought at first the sensor that I had for it was bad, so I went and got another sensor, still wasn't working. And I kept that Super Scope for about a year, and it was just really good shelf candy. In fact, if you look at some of my older videos, you might even see it in the background. It used to be in the background. I used to have it in the background for some of my older videos. And I got to a point one day where it was like, dude, I can't use the Super Scope. And the only way I can use it is if I go out and buy a CRT TV. And at that point, I didn't have the space nor the desire to go out and buy another TV to play video games. I just wasn't interested in doing that. And so I wound up selling the Super Scope, and I sold it for less than half of what I paid for it. But it taught me a big lesson, which is like, bro, stop buying stuff that you can't use, or stop buying stuff that you're not ready to play. And just focus on maintaining your curated collection. And I think that's what's important for me. Everybody's different, but I do believe that for a lot of collectors who have a lot of stuff, like a lot of collectors who just have rooms full of stuff, I think they're all gonna get to that point too. And they're gonna start paring things down and realizing like, you know what? I don't need like every Wii game, because like 60% of the Wii library is trash. They're gonna, they're gonna start to realize like, a lot of the stuff that they have filling up their shelves is just really garbage. So, but those are my thoughts for today. I've got some returns to make. My daughter's birthday is coming up, so I've got some cupcakes to pick up. I'm gonna pick up these crazy cupcakes. There's a cupcake shop in New York, in the city, on the east side. Make some killer cupcakes. So I'm gonna be picking up some cupcakes today. And yeah, hopefully fight this cold, man. This thing is like getting bad. Hopefully I can get over it soon. But that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. It's Monday, folks. Carpe diem. It's Thanksgiving week. It's Thanksgiving week. Can you believe it? Thanksgiving week. So get ready. Get your menu items ready. Start doing your food shopping. Don't wait till the last minute. You know how the supermarkets get. I don't know where you are, but in New York, listen, the supermarket's a madhouse. All right. Week of Thanksgiving, it is a madhouse. So get your turkey and stuff ahead of time. And I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.